Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Noah and I'm here to teach you guys how to make one of my favorite foods of all time, rice pudding. So quick disclaimer, I'm lactose intolerant, so this is going to be a dairy-free rice pudding. When I found out a couple years ago that I couldn't have any milk, this was one of the foods that I was the most upset that I couldn't eat anymore. But after a lot of experimentation and a lot of practice in the kitchen, I finally have figured out how to make a delicious and creamy rice pudding that if you don't tell anyone, they probably aren't even gonna guess that there is no milk in it. So the first thing that you're gonna need is some rice. So I've done this recipe with a couple different kinds of rice, but I found that the medium grain gives you the thicker consistency in the finished product, which is something that you'd need when you're not gonna be putting regular milk and all that stuff. You can also use long grain rice though, like if you can't find medium grain rice, it'll still work absolutely fine. I just personally prefer to use the medium grain rice. Next, you're just gonna need some regular tap water so that you can cook the rice in. Not gonna go into too much detail about that. Next, you're gonna need some cinnamon sticks. So this is something that I like to use when I'm cooking the rice. I feel like that way it gives some extra cinnamon flavor. So definitely don't skimp out on these. I usually use like 3 to 4, but you can put as many or as little as you want. And they're also pretty cheap, which is nice. Then you're gonna need some salt just to balance out the sweetness. I'm using kosher salt, but you can use table salt or any other salt you have on hand. So I'm using about 3 cups of the Silk unsweetened soy milk. So the thing with the non-dairy milk options here is that you want to try to use a very neutral tasting milk because you don't want the finished product to have the taste of whatever milk that you're using. So yes, I know that soy milk can have a taste, but in this recipe, the taste really does go away. So I found this to be one of the best options to use. Another thing that you can use is unsweetened cashew milk. Unfortunately, that can be a little bit harder to find, but if you prefer that or have a soy allergy, definitely try to go with the cashew milk. So you can also use unsweetened almond milk, but unfortunately I found that it does leave an almond milky taste in the rice pudding. So if you like the taste of almond milk, that's cool, you can use it. It will work technically, but I personally do not like the taste of almond milk too much. So, completely up to you though, whatever kind of non-dairy milk you want to use. And next is my secret weapon, coconut milk. So canned coconut milk has a lot more fat than a lot of the other non-dairy milk options that are in the fridge. So when I take off this lid, I'll show you guys later, there is gonna be a layer of fat under there and it's gonna make the rice pudding super creamy. So I'm only gonna be using 1 can of this, and the reason why is because I don't want to make a coconut rice pudding today. Nothing against coconut rice pudding, that's just not what I want to go for. I want to go for the OG rice pudding, that you get from the regular corner store. And if we make a coconut flavored, then it's kind of just going to be coconut flavored. Next up, of course, is our sugar sweetener. Apologies for the crusty sugar jar. This thing is older than me and I plan on keeping it forever, but just regular table sugar in here. You can use any kind of sweetener you want. You can use honey, you can use agave, you can use coconut sugar. It's really up to you. You can maybe use Splenda or stevia. I personally never tested that out, but I don't see how it wouldn't work. If any of you guys want to keep it low sugar and give this recipe a try with the Splenda or the stevia, let me know how it goes because I am curious. All right, so then next up is the vanilla extract. You can use any kind here. I would steer clear of the imitation vanilla extract, even though it is a bit cheaper. It's still, always my favorite to use the real thing. And next up, we have just regular ground cinnamon. This is gonna be used at the end to really give a big cinnamon flavor. The cinnamon sticks do give a pretty good cinnamon flavor, but I like a little extra, so definitely get the ground stuff on hand. Lastly, I'm gonna be adding in some raisins at the very end. Like I said, I want this to be like the original rice pudding that I ate growing up, so I'm definitely gonna be adding these guys in later. So if you don't like raisins, you can use other stuff like cranberries or chocolate chips or walnuts, or you can just not add anything at all. It'll still be perfectly delicious all on its own. So the first thing is gonna be to add 1 3/4 cup of water to a large saucepan. Now that our water is boiling, we can add in our 1 cup of rice. We can also add in our cinnamon sticks. So like I said, I'm gonna be adding in 3 here, but you can definitely add more or less if you want. They're a little hard to get out of the thing, but that's okay. Just gonna keep going with it. So we have 3. All right, and we're also gonna add in a pinch of salt, not too much. This is kosher salt, so I always use it very sparingly. And we're just gonna give this a quick mix just to get everything settled and acquainted. And then once this starts simmering, just lower the heat all the way down and cover. I'm going to cook this on low heat for 20 minutes. I like to set a timer because I'm forgetful. So if you can, set a timer. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes and our rice is cooked. So now we're going to be adding in our non-dairy beverage. So don't forget to give the coconut milk a really good shake, because remember, we want to get all that fatty goodness into the mixture. Okay, so we got 1 whole can. I think this is a 13.5 ounce can. Then we're gonna add in our 3 cups of soy milk. Then we're gonna add in 2/3 cup of sugar. And then once you get all those ingredients in, you're just gonna mix until it's combined. Okay, so then you're just gonna keep stirring this, and it's okay if the rice gets into little chunks like this. You're just gonna keep trying to break them up and stir it until it's smooth. Okay, I'm just breaking up some of the last remaining chunks of rice here. The next thing I'm gonna do is turn the heat all the way up just to get this to start bubbling a little bit. We don't want it to be boiling too heavily, but a good hearty simmer, I think, would be the best way to describe it. Then what we're gonna do from there is we're gonna keep on stirring this occasionally until it thickens. But I'll check in with you guys when that happens. Okay, now that our rice is bubbling, we're gonna lower our heat down to medium and we're gonna keep stirring. So we don't have to stir this constantly, just every 2 to 3 minutes or so. So the reason why we're gonna keep stirring this every so often is because we wanna aggregate the rice. So basically what that means is as we're stirring, the starches are getting released from the rice and thickening the mixture. The other thing that we're doing is we're reducing the milk and the sugar, which is going to give this the pudding-like consistency. So I'm gonna keep stirring this and I'm gonna check back in with you guys once we're a little closer. All right guys, so I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of a film on top. That's totally normal. That's just what happens if you're not constantly stirring it. But just keep stirring it and that will eventually go away. At this point, it is just about done. One of the ways that I like to test this out is if I can hold it on the spatula and it's not slipping off the sides, it's pretty much done. You can still pour it, but keep in mind that since it's still really hot, it's still a little bit runny. But once this cools down, it'll be a nice thick pudding consistency. All right, so I'm gonna let this cool down a bit and then I'm gonna update you guys once it is done. Okay, this has been cooling for about 15 minutes. As you can see, it's gotten a lot thicker already. So I'm gonna add in now my extra cinnamon. Like I said before, you don't necessarily need to add more cinnamon if you already are satisfied with the cinnamon flavor from the cinnamon sticks, but I like cinnamon a lot, so I'm gonna add in an extra teaspoon here. I'm also gonna be adding in a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of vanilla. So with this, I would recommend doing a teaspoon at a time, mixing it up and then tasting it. And then if you feel like it wants more vanilla flavor, then add another half a teaspoon or so. Once you add in your cinnamon and vanilla, you're gonna give it a good mix. And now you can see it's kind of turning into more of that traditional rice pudding color. Because before it was just so white looking. Now it's a little bit better. All right, let's see how this came out. I'm gonna taste for seasoning now. So delicious and creamy. I will say though that it is a little bit rich right now. So I am going to add in just a pinch more salt to kind of cut through that sweetness, especially if you're gonna be adding in those raisins later. You don't want it to be sweet on sweet on sweet on sweet. So a little bit of salt goes a long way. So it's definitely better with the salt. I will say, like, if you don't like your rice pudding to be too sweet, I would stick to half a cup. I put 2/3 of a cup because I like things to be a little sweet. That's just me. But like I said, if you don't want it to be super sweet, just put half a cup and then maybe work your way up in tablespoon increments. So now I'm just going to let this cool a bit more. It definitely has thickened up a lot, but it is still very hot. And we definitely don't want to put this away while it's still hot. So I'm just going to let this cool on the stovetop for maybe about 30 minutes or so, and then see if I could touch the side of the pan comfortably. Then it's, you know, more or less okay to go in the fridge. But for now, I will be back and show you guys the final result when everything is done and when the raisins are added and when it's all completely thickened up. All right guys, so it's about 80% cooled down all the way. As you can see, it got a lot thicker. So right now I'm gonna add in my raisins. I have some people that don't like raisins, so I'm gonna add it to the cup. If you're going to add it to the entire pot, I would add in about half a cup, maybe a little more if you want extra raisins. I'm just gonna do a little handful here. The one good thing I will say about adding the raisins into the whole pot is that overnight, all of that moisture from the rice pudding is gonna get soaked into the raisins. So it's gonna kind of reactivate them a little bit and turn them thick and plump. All right, so let's give this a taste now that the raisins are in and it's all done. It's so good with the raisins. You're definitely gonna be getting a lot of that cinnamon, and it is so creamy. So keep in mind that it is gonna get a little bit creamier overnight once it's completely cooled. Like I said, this is only about like 80% of the way cooled. But I do hope that you guys give this a try. If you guys have any like special variations or twists that you add to it, please let me know, because I'm always curious to modify and experiment with my recipes. All right guys, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Please do consider to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.